Hey guys, it's BenTbeyondrepair here, and I'm doing another video on the rank system. I think this is a really important deep dive. Obviously, I've received lots of comments on some of my previous videos about ranked saying, hey, what's going wrong? I'm demoting all the way from emerald to gold, or I'm demoting from platinum to silver. I've never seen these kind of demotions before. And, I'm thinking to myself as, again, a player who's played since season 3, who's GM, I'm thinking to myself, something is wrong here. Like, it's not really, it's possible, but it's not realistic for a lot of people to demote all the way from emerald, to gold or something like that. That's like a very long drop. It's not something that you would expect, which is why it's throwing people off. But I have a couple of answers as to why this is happening that I think are really important to take a look at. So a lot of people, like I said, are complaining, hey, I'm dropping from masters to diamond. Hey, I'm dropping from emerald to gold. Maybe even to silver. I'm dropping from platinum to silver. I'm dropping from gold to bronze. These like double rank decreases that we have never really seen before, for most players, unless they're a real exception. Now, this is, I think, what has to do with it, and we've talked about this change before, but what we have essentially is Split 1, a rank distribution for League of Legends back in Season 13, and then Split 2's new distribution after Emerald was introduced in the game, and then over here we can see the current rank distribution in NA. We could look globally, but they're about the same. But the current rank distribution in NA, and we can kind of take a look and compare the numbers. So what's really interesting here is that if you look before Emerald was added, so back in Season 13 Split 1, we can see the percentages. I know it's a little bit small. I wanted to get a bigger image up, but this doesn't... oh, here we go. Okay, so we've got this image, right? And we can see here that 30% of players were in silver, plus another 25% nearly in bronze, and a little over 5% in iron. So roughly 60% of the player base was iron, bronze, or silver as of Split 1 2013. I just blocked it, my apologies. So 60% of players were in iron, bronze, silver. Now, what we're essentially going to see here is that in Split 2, when they added Emerald into the game, we can see that a bunch of people now became Emerald. They tried to make, a little bit over 15%. This looks like 16, 17% of players in Emerald. And they, have about 20% of players in Platinum as opposed to like 12% of players in Platinum, and 20% in Gold, down from, near 25%. And many, many less players in bronze and silver. So let's take a look. This is a chart that was made that really shows how this change in the distribution was going to shift a lot of players. And so when Season 13 Split 2 happened and Emerald was introduced, they created a more normalized distribution, which in a way created a lot of like rank inflation. Like a lot of players being platinum who simply didn't improve and wouldn't have been platinum before under the old distribution. Suddenly you can see even players from the top of silver moving into platinum, and almost every player that was in gold moving up to platinum or emerald. Now, this doesn't mean that, some people are going to call out this chart and say, well, hey, I'm a gold player and I didn't move to platinum or emerald. But this chart says 100% of players did. This is like theoretical where the new percentile of players would move to. If you just shifted the ladder up, it doesn't mean that every single individual is actually going to manage to make this if you're not playing the game enough in order to get to, to reap the advantages of the distribution being shifted. If you're just doing poorly individually as a player, you're not going to benefit from this shift. But this is last year. This is just to get us to our basic understanding of what's happening now. The main reason why we see emerald players demoting all the way to gold or something like that, or platinum players demoting all the way to silver, is because you're actually demoting the same amount as if you were a silver 1 player demoting into silver 4. We can see that here. If you're at the bottom of platinum, you're basically demoting the same percentile or demoting past the same number of players. If you demote all the way into silver nowadays, as it would have before. So if we go back to this previous chart, right? Let's think about some examples here. So nowadays, if you're in platinum, you're in the top 20 plus about another 20%. So you're in the top 40% of players. Silver is in the bottom 40% of players. They're about the same. So to demote from platinum to silver, it's the 40th percentile versus the 60th percentile. So you're only moving down 20% of the player base. You're demoting past 20% of the players. And keep in mind, you're in the middle of the rank distribution, right? In between gold or in between, platinum and silver here. So this is where there are the most players. So moving past 20% of them is not that difficult to do, basically, either forwards or backwards, because they're all piled up in the middle. So essentially, demoting from platinum to silver today is the equivalent of demoting from the 40th percentile to the 60th percentile. Now let's take a look at what that would have been right before, as we did. If you were in platinum before, there was 12% here plus another 2% or so here. Platinum was the top 15% of players before. Now platinum is only the top 40% of players. That is a gigantic difference. So of course, before, it was going to be very difficult for a platinum player to demote into silver because it represented a player who was in the top 15% of players in the distribution, demoting all the way to like the top 60% of players. Whereas a player who's in platinum now, demoting to silver, represents a player who is in the top 40th percentile, demoting all the way to the bottom, or like 60th percentile. So obviously that's not nearly as big of a shift or as big of a drop. It's almost to be expected, because if we look like we did before, right, what this means is, so now let's do an equivalent comparison. So let's say that we're going from the 40th percentile. So where's the 40th percentile before in the old rank distribution? 25%, 30%. So right here, right, kind of in the middle of silver, this would be the 60th percentile. And then we'd need another 20%. So if we go from 10 to 30%, yeah. So essentially demoting from platinum to silver now is equivalent from demoting from the 40th percentile to the 60th percentile. In old League of Legends, so Season 13 Split 1 and previously, that was the same equivalent as demoting from Silver 1 to like mid-silver. Totally normal. Another reason why it looks like matchmaking is broken, but it really isn't, is that people are seeing, hey, I'm in silver and I have a platinum player in my game. Why is that possible? That doesn't seem fair. How come I have to beat a platinum player in order to get out of silver? It's because a platinum player today is not equivalent to a platinum player of years past. So a platinum player today might be equivalent to like your silver 1 or your gold 4 player in previous seasons. And there's no problem with a gold 4 player or a silver 1 player matching against like a mid-silver player. That's totally normal, happens all the time. And on top of that, especially in NA, we know that the player base is declining a little bit. And so you're going to have, unfortunately, if the player base declines in population, you're going to have less balanced matches. You're going to have more people playing across a wider spectrum of games. And so you have these multiple factors combining at the same time. You have the fact that really a platinum player, a low platinum 4 player who has, or platinum player with below platinum MMR is really just like a silver player or a gold player in years past playing against another silver player, in like silver 3 versus silver 1 or silver 2 versus silver 1. There's really nothing wrong with the matchmaking there. And there's nothing really wrong with the matchmaking that you're able to demote from platinum to silver. It just feels bad because people only judge their rank based off of their face rank. They don't have an MMR number to work off of. Most people don't think in terms of percentiles, even though that's how the ladder's distributed. And so because you're not thinking in percentiles, you're essentially saying, I've never seen a platinum player demote all the way to silver before. That's supposed to be super rare if somebody like imploded or something. So what's happening there? It's that happening at the same time as you also have a little bit less players queuing up for ranked, not as many people playing the game anymore. And then on top of that, and this is a big issue as well, which I wanted to get into, is there are too many splits, right? We used to have one split per year. Then in season 13, now we have two splits per year. Now we're having three splits per year. It's too many splits. And so what is happening in a lot of cases is we're seeing players who have played 40 ranked games or 50 ranked games, but the reason why they haven't gotten back to their main rank is because they've been soft reset, and it takes more than 50 games to get back to your main rank. And people are going to say, well, that's too many games. You should get back to your main rank quicker than that. Let me use my account as an example, and we'll take a look, right? Okay, so ignore this Lulu game real quick. What we have here is on my account, I ended last season Master 400 LP. It took me, you can see I just recently, within the last week or so, got back to 400 LP. So it took me a little over 200 games, or about 200 games, in order to get back to my main rank, right? To the rank I was at the end of last split. And it's not like I won 50% of my games to get back there. I won 57% of my solo queue games. So with a 57% win rate, it took me 200 games just to get back to where I was before. Now there's only 1 month out of 4 months per split. There's only 1 month left in the split for me to attempt to even hit a new peak or to get to Challenger or something like that. That is crazy, because people who are working, people who have families, people who are becoming adults do not have the time to play 4 or 5 plus games a day like they maybe did when they were in high school or when they were in college, right? And even then, people did that at a detriment to themselves. So it would be a lot nicer if you could climb without having to play so many games, right? This is the difficulty, is unfortunately, Riot thinks that because more people are playing more games, because they're forcing them onto this hamster wheel of having to get back to the same rank over and over again, that that's good for the game because it's increasing play rates. But it's this concept that it's going to increase play rates in the short term, but decrease play rates in the long term, because it's going to tilt people because they're never getting to make any progress, never getting to hit a new rank. Now imagine if I was a player who was winning 50% of my games. Even if you're winning 50% of your games, it's normal to climb back to your previous rank that you were at the last split. Why? Because your MMR mostly stays the same, and because you're matching with the same people as you were playing with last time. So if you're able to continue to win 50% versus those people, you will climb back to your main rank. You'll basically climb back to, if you were Masters 400 LP, you'll climb back to Masters 400 LP eventually if you're winning 50% of your games. Why is that? It's because when you start the split, your LP gains are like plus 40, minus 20, or, plus 38, minus 18. Eventually that evens out if you're only winning 50%, and then you get to like plus 20, minus 20 when you get back to what rank you were last split. But essentially, as long as you're able to win 50% of your games, your MMR should carry you back to, with your LP gains being higher than your losses, should carry you back to your main rank. It's even easier in low elo, because in gold you might only get demoted back into silver, as opposed to me being a 400 or 500 LP player getting all the way demoted to Emerald 1, because that's the highest that you can start at in ranked. It's capped at Emerald 1. So obviously it's worse and a longer climb for high elo players. It's more games that you need to play, but I don't really think that this is realistic. I'm playing 2 games a day, 3 games a day on average. I think I did the math and I was averaging like 2.2, 2.3 games a day so far this split, winning 57% of my games. And like I said, I'm not really going to have any time with only a month left until the end of the split. Where is the time to be able to climb to new heights? I don't want to be on this hamster wheel. It doesn't, like, you can see this graph. You might think it feels good to be consistently climbing, over 200 games or something like that, as opposed to being stuck at a 50% win rate at your main rank. I disagree. I think being stuck at a 50% win rate at your main rank until you improve tells you that you need to improve. It feels like at any moment or any day you could potentially make progress and hit your new goal if you improve. And it also, right, shows to people that the rank system is is valid because you're only able to win 50% of your games at your main rank. And so, and so you get kind of stuck there if you're not making any sort of improvement. So I feel like having somebody play 200, 300 games to get back to their previous rank is completely ridiculous, right? Depending on if you're like 50% to 57% or 50% to 60% win rate, it's going to take you, if you're a master 500 LP player anyways, it's going to take you 200 or 300 games to get back to your main rank or the rank you were the previous split. And that's crazy because that's not even leaving any time for improvement or like getting to the next rank at your peak. That leaves no time for playing at your peak. And since there are going to be 3 splits a year, if you're having to do those 200 or 300 games every split, that's 900 games a year. A lot of people don't come anywhere close to playing 900 games a year. I play this game a lot. Like, I'm a very high ranked player compared to where I used to be, and I don't have time to play 900 games a year, not even close. So, I mean, it's not possible. It's like, even when I was spending the most time in high school playing the game as I've ever played before, 900 games was like pushing it. Like some years I would get 900 games played, some years I wouldn't. And that was when I was playing a ton of League of Legends, right? When I had nothing better to do, when that was what I was focused on and I didn't care about anything else that was going on. It's not possible for an adult to do that, right? So the system's definitely broken in that there shouldn't be 3 splits a year, or if there are going to be 3 splits a year, they need to increase LP gains and losses significantly so that instead of taking 200 or 300 games to get back to your previous rank, it only takes you like 50 or 100 games, or even less than that would be great, right? Because people don't want to spend the entire time just climbing through ranks they've already climbed before. There's this concept on YouTube's algorithm where if somebody like watches a video, and they might watch it, but then become very dissatisfied. They dislike the video, it makes them angry, and then they quit YouTube after and go do something else, right? This video is very dissatisfying, right? And essentially, YouTube does a good job of keeping track of whether somebody's satisfied or dissatisfied, or at least trying to tell with all the metrics they have. And it's like YouTube understands that just increasing watch time in the short term is not worth it if it causes people to quit and leave the website and go do something else, right? And League and Riot need to understand that it's the same thing with League. You are going to kill the game if you force people to play 900 games in the short term, but in the long term, they can't make any progress because they're constantly stuck just trying to get back to their previous rank. It's going to cause people to quit the game because they can't make any progression unless they're playing just a completely untenable amount of games for most people. And so this is a significant problem that Riot needs to address. They need to increase LP gains and decrease LP losses. They need to get rid of 3 splits per year. It's absolutely crazy that you have to play that much. It's too much of a reset, or they need to do an even softer reset on the reset, something so that you don't have to play 200 games to get back to your previous rank. So to wrap things up, right? When we see, and there was one other thing I wanted to do actually, which is, so we have this rank distribution here, right, that we saw, but this was in split 2 of 2013, or not 2013, 2023, season 13, right? So when we go to the rank distribution here, does this line up with their rank distribution that they were trying to get to in split 2? They're not exactly the same, but my personal opinion is that they basically line up. So we can see that there was supposed to be, a tiny percentage, probably about 1% of players or less in Apex tiers. We can see that that's basically the case. We've got like 0.68% in Master or above. So that's right on the money there for Apex tiers. In Diamond, we had slightly less than 5%. Looks like maybe 3% of players they wanted in Diamond. We have 3.7% of players in Diamond. So that's about right. That's fine. In Emerald, 11%. This one they're falling short of a little bit. They wanted more like 16% of players in Emerald. But again, okay, so there's a 5% drop in the number of players that are Emerald currently than they wanted to be in Emerald. That doesn't necessarily mean much, because a 5% drop, think of what a 5% drop means. means. If you were here, so let's say hypothetically, my personal opinion is that this distribution never manifested, that they got close to getting people to this distribution because we shifted from this distribution here on the left to this distribution here on the right. My opinion is that the distribution is in the progress with ranked resets and with people having to play enough games to actually get to, their proper rank. I think that essentially this shift just hasn't completed all the way. So there's just some players haven't made it all the way up to Emerald yet, not having played enough games. Some players are still lingering in Bronze and Silver because there were so many players there and they've been reset, 3 times a year, and and aren't playing a ton of games. So my opinion is that essentially we're like on our way to this distribution still, like it's still being calibrated, or essentially people are still having to play games to get to this distribution. What some people would say is, well, the reason why I demoted from Emerald to Silver or whatever is because Riot adjusted this distribution backwards a little bit. So let's think about if that was the case. Even if, there were a little bit too many players, like Riot changed this, and now let's say we drew in Split 1 and Split 2 of Season 14, let's say that Riot intentionally shifted this backwards so that the distribution numbers that we're seeing here are what Riot intends very specifically, not just us slowly moving towards this new distribution that they aimed for when they added Emerald about a year ago. Even if Riot intended this distribution to be the correct one, where there were slightly more players in Iron, Bronze, and Silver than this graph represents, a 5% decrease right across the board would only represent going from like Emerald 1 to like Emerald 2, Emerald 2.5, like Emerald 3, maybe. 5% decrease in Plat would take you from like Plat 1 to like Plat 2, Gold 1 to Gold 2, Silver 1 to Silver 2. So you can see that any kind of major demotion is not happening because Riot pulled the ranked distribution back intentionally. It's because demoting from, Platinum 4 to Silver 1 is the equivalent of demoting from like Silver 1 to Silver 3 in as you can see, and as we talked about in Split 1 of 2013 or 2023. That's so confusing every time. Okay, so then the other thing, right? So if we keep going, Emerald's at 11% instead of 16%, Platinum's at 14% instead of 20%, so about a 5 or 6% pullback there. So we can basically see that, Diamond and Apex are where they predicted it, more or less. There's actually a little bit more players in Diamond, but we're seeing a 5% pullback in Emerald, a 5 or 6% pullback in Platinum, and then Gold is supposed to be at 20%. It's at 14%, so we're also seeing about a 6% pullback in Gold. And then in Silver, obviously these players have to go somewhere. In Silver, we're at 19%. That's right about where it was supposed to be. And in Bronze, we see a lot more players in Bronze than are necessarily according to this, than they were aiming to put in Bronze. Now, not a ton. We're seeing 23%. So that's overrepresented from 16% by like 7%. And then there's also more players in Iron than we would expect. So there's 11% of players are in Iron. This had only, about 4 or 5% of players in Iron. So again, there's probably about 6% extra players in Iron. So you can see the way that the distribution is. My opinion is that we're moving from this distribution where there are a lot of players in Bronze and Silver and Gold to this new distribution. And there's still more players in Bronze and Silver than there are in this, idealized version, because of a lot of ranked resets, those players not playing the game very much, and just basically not having the time or the sample size in order to fit into the distribution the way that they normally would. Now, again, we've already explained this, but as for Platinum players demoting into Silver, or Emerald players demoting into Gold or Silver or whatever, this is just the equivalent of a Silver 1 player demoting to Silver 4 or something in seasons past, and no one would have batted an eye. The reason why people are saying that something's broken or seeing something wrong is just because the percentiles are the same, but the face ranks are different ever since Emerald was introduced at the end of last year in Split 2. So same thing with matchmaking. Why are we seeing platinum players matching versus silver players? It's because of the change in the distribution. Now, again, even with, there being an extra 7% of players in bronze, most of those players, again, if you assume that silver went down 7%, you'd have to be like mid silver or something like that to see a pullback into bronze. And that's not really that crazy of a pullback, right? So if you're like silver 2 / borderline silver 3, or you're like silver 3, demoting into bronze or something like that is not that unreasonable or unheard of, right? So I hope that this clears things up about this distribution. There's still a problem, right, that people have to play so many games to get back to their main rank. There's still a problem with having so many ranked resets for a casual player who's not willing or able to play that many games. And Riot needs to do something about that, whether it's increased LP gains or reducing the number of resets or softening the resets harder. Or something to make it so that people get back to their main rank and can feel like they're climbing to new peaks again, rather than being stuck in a hamster wheel, climbing from bronze to platinum, bronze to platinum, bronze to platinum, or whatever the case may be. Or for me, like emerald to masters, emerald to masters, emerald to masters. You don't want to do that split after split after split. It doesn't feel like you're making any progress. And I think that they're causing an aging player base that's not able to play the game as much to quit, because there's even less point to investing so much time into a game when you don't even feel the progress of like being able to go up a rank at the end of every season or every split, because you're constantly reset right when you're getting back to your main rank. So yeah, hope this clarifies why some people are demoting so much. I mentioned in a previous video too, so I guess I'll just add this, that they did ban 50,000 bot accounts, and there are some bot accounts that had been literally playing ranked in like bronze and iron. And so I imagine that shifted the distribution down a little bit as well, where like a lot of players who were in silver or who were in gold or whatever, gold players moved down into silver, silver players moved down into bronze. When all these bot accounts were banned, some bronze players moved down into iron, because with those accounts not participating on the ladder anymore, the distribution needed to normalize, meaning people needed to shift back into iron and bronze in those spaces where those bot accounts had been playing. And so that's, part of this as well, but a small piece of it. I think this is a bigger thing about what's going on. So a lot of people who are saying, hey, I've demoted to silver from platinum, check the percentile. You probably demoted the same amount you would have if you were high silver before demoting to low silver. It just looks really drastic. And, when we see, even for high elo players, when we see, hey, a platinum player is demoting into silver, or an emerald player is demoting into silver or something like that, or gold, we would say, like, that's not normal. That shouldn't be happening. We never see, like, there was such a big difference between the old platinum players and the old silver players that there was no way an old platinum player was going to demote to silver. You could feel the difference really clearly. But the difference between a silver 1 player of old and a silver 4 player was not that big. And so you could feel the difference if you were really in tune with the game and the way people were playing, or were able to observe a big enough sample size of games from these players. But silver 1 and silver 4 were not that crazy far apart. It's the same percentile, right? Nowadays it's 40th percentile demoting to 60th percentile. That's what platinum demoting to silver means nowadays. And that's the same as demoting from silver 1 to silver 4, silver 1 to silver 3, back in season 13 split 1. So hope that clarifies why people are demoting so much. Don't be discouraged. Don't be demoralized. Make sure that you don't change your main champion because you're tilted or you're not climbing. You're just going to have to either accept that you need to play more games in order to climb, and beg Riot to do something about making it not take so many games. And so if you really want to climb, you're either just going to have to toughen it out and play more games and accept that sometimes you're going to slide from platinum to silver, and sometimes you're going to rapidly improve from silver to plat, or from silver to emerald. That's going to happen more frequently because All of the bronze, silver, and gold players are now spread out across all of these ranks more evenly, and so the skill level is much tighter, or actually less tight between these ranks. So hope that helps you guys understand that. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.